Welcome to Studio 5. We've got a great show in store for you. We're taking a look at the new Christian film from Dallas Jenkins. Recording artist Terrian shares some new music, and we're talking to a classically trained pianist about transformation and purpose. All that is coming up in just a few moments, but first, let's get right to this week's countdown of the top 5 headlines from the world of uplifting entertainment. Here are the first 2. At number 5.
Congratulations, Duke. I can't wait to see what you bring us.
We remember Quincy Jones, the longtime music powerhouse behind multi-platinum albums, including Michael Jackson's Thriller, the best-selling album of all time. Jones died Sunday at age 91.
I love it. 110 million albums on Thriller. I love it.
His career in music, film, and television spans more than a half-century. Perhaps the most memorable moment uniting the biggest names in music to record a single that would raise millions for famine relief.
Memories that just make my soul smile.
At number 4.
They told me pom-pom-pom.
It's a holiday tradition with For King and Country, when A Drummer Boy Christmas Live comes to theaters December 5th through the 9th. Introduce us to what we can expect when we get in the theater for this.
We took the Unsung Hero film crew, dropped them into the Toyota Center in Houston, Texas, December 19th last year, and we captured a cinematic, sonic, visual version of the show, a live concert.
So light up that Christmas tree, stand under the mistletoe, surround yourself with the ones that you love the most, and together let us celebrate the greatest news that this world has ever known.
The remaining 3 uplifting entertainment stories are coming up. The best Christmas pageant ever is the story of 6 misbehaving siblings who get into all types of trouble, including hijacking the town's Christmas pageant. Well, they end up with the leading roles. The film is based on a best-selling book, and it's directed by Dallas Jenkins.
We can just keep cameras and all that stuff, kind of just keep everything shooting out this way.
Millions watch director Dallas Jenkins bring the pages of scripture to screen in his wildly popular series, The Chosen. His latest project?
All right, from the top. Camera set.
Good job, back row. Even louder.
Is inspired by another book, the 1971 children's novel, The Best Christmas Pageant Ever.
And action.
It's a look at what happens when the worst children in town take over the annual Christmas show.
Oh no, it's the Hermans. Now. The Hermans are absolutely the worst kids in the history of the world.
So Dallas, how does this go from a best-selling book to a big screen adventure?
Yeah. So about 20 years ago, my wife brought the book home, and I had read it as a kid in my public school, and I remember I'd seen a TV movie in the early 80s, but I didn't remember a whole lot about it. And I was reading it to my kids, and I'm laughing, and I'm noticing all these wonderful little moments, and I'm like, boy, this is so good. By the end, I'm crying so hard, I can't read. And my wife grabbed the book, she's like, all right, let me do it. And so she starts reading to the kids, and she starts crying, she can't get through it. So I take the book back, and we would just exchange the book while the other one recovered. And that became our Christmas tradition, is reading the book to the kids and them making fun of us for crying the whole time, while also loving the story themselves. So when I finished the book, I just said, I have to make this movie. And I've chased the rights for 20 years. The rights have been with other studios and other directors off and on. And I was just hoping God would preserve it for me and not let it get made. And finally, a few years ago, but because of The Chosen, actually, the rights holders said, all right, we're ready for you to do this, and we think you're the right guy.
73 golf, take 1.
Right to your spot. And it's okay to look down.
Alpha only mark.
Just glance.
Filmmaker Kevin Downs is a producer on the project. Kevin, let's talk about the cast. You have Judy Greer, Pete Holmes, Lauren Graham. How did you create an environment that allows for such comedic and heartfelt performances?
Here's the thing, it's so hard as an actor to be able to create these characters that seem somewhat simple and yet make people want to be drawn into you. And Pete does it so effortlessly. He's so brilliant in this film. And so I love his performance. I love Judy Greer's performance. I mean, the two of them just really, you just want to watch them, and you want them to win from the moment that, you know, this story starts to unfold, and then just to enjoy the hijinks of the kids and the heart that they bring. It's really, really a great film. It's a quick watch, and we need something that celebrates Christmas in a way like never before at this time.
Why'd you have to tell them they get food at church, dummy? Because I didn't think they'd actually walk into a church building.
I'm surprised they didn't burst into flames.
So, Pete, what was it like to play Bob Bradley?
Well, honestly, it wasn't a stretch for me. I am a dorky, sort of hammy dad, and Bob is a dorky, hammy dad who loves Christmas and loves his family, has a daughter. I have a daughter. I don't have a son. And I am married to Judy Greer, so it worked out really, it was real easy for me, really natural.
Did I ruin the pageant?
Oh my goodness, no. Honey, Beth, I will tell you what I told those condescending, hyper-controlling busybodies from church, that while Helen Armstrong might be surprised the sun rises every morning even though she's not there to supervise it, she is not the only woman in the world who can run a Christmas pageant. And if they don't think I can do it, they are in for a big lesson.
What messages of faith do we see in this story?
I think there's a real message of inclusion and dropping the idea of the other. The Bible verse that I just referenced was when Jesus says, "What you do to the least of these, you do for me," right? So that's kind of what I would say is the message of the film, is that instead of seeing these riffraff kids, the herdmans, as the outliers, as the others, no room in the inn, so to speak, you do let them into your heart and you fold them into the community. But I think anything that helps you see the oneness and the lack of division between each of us is a great message.
Is your mom home?
Not when the sun's up.
Sorry about that.
It's fine. I know how to cook.
I'm sure you do. Well, please let her know I stopped by. I got the biggest ham for you guys.
Let's talk about the mischievousness and the misbehaving of these children. How did you capture both the chaotic energy and the underlying humanity?
The casting of the Herdman kids, they're the worst kids in the history of the world. They're on the outside, they're in poverty, they do a lot of hijinks, but then of course you have to find kids who can, I think it's easier sometimes for kids to perform some of those parts. You know, the humor, the toughness. It's hard when the show gets, you know, more emotional, and to find that heart. And so that was a big part of the casting process. It took us a long time. We went through hours and hours and hours of auditions, because to find those kids at that age who can pull off both comedy and drama it's extraordinarily rare. And we just got very fortunate. I mean, I think we got to the place where the choices weren't actually difficult, because the kids that emerged were so good that I think God brought them to us and said, these are the people that I want to portray the story of the Nativity through their eyes and through the lens of this modern day Christmas pageant. And I think, honestly, I mean, I'd like to take credit for some of it, but I think ultimately God brought these kids to us, and we knew they were the right ones, and they blew us away.
She's crying. Mary's crying.
It's going to be the best Christmas pageant ever.
The Best Christmas Pageant Ever is in theaters nationwide starting November 8th. Still to come. Recording artist Terrian talks about her life and her music. This project is called Give It Time. Take me inside the project as best you can.
I went, maybe I can create some sort of a storyline here with this album as best as I can. And it doesn't have to just be about waiting in your career, but it can also be about waiting when you've prayed and asked the Lord to heal you.
At number 3.
So why do you do this? Why do you wrestle? When people look at me, the first thing they see is what's missing.
It's a Studio 5 first look at Unstoppable, inspired by the true story of Anthony Robles, who was born with one leg and grows up to defy expectations and becomes a championship college wrestler, competing against the very team that rejected him.
The champ is here! Celebration dinner for Anthony! The mom told me about that Drexel scholarship.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna keep my options open.
When you could go to school for free? Hey, you heard what your son said? He's gonna keep his options open.
It's in theaters December 6th and streaming on Prime Video in January of 2025.
Listen up. You're gonna have to beat out men who were recruited to be on the Arizona State University wrestling team. You're gonna have to prove everyone wrong just to make the team.
Hey, sure you don't want to run track?
At number 2,
Hate comes in every color.
it's a Studio 5 first look at Bonhoeffer, pastor, spy, and assassin.
You will go to England as our spy.
Churchill sees Germany as a whole. He's afraid that a bomb traced to England would mean invasion or worse.
Invasion. Invasion. My country was invaded from within.
It's the true story of Dietrich Bonhoeffer, a man who preached love while plotting the assassination of an evil tyrant. It's scheduled for release November 22nd.
I'm ready to meet my destiny.
And with that, we've got just one more story to share in this week's Countdown. That's coming up in just a few moments. But first, we're sitting down with singer and songwriter Tarian. She is known for singing with Toby Mac's band Diverse City, but she is also a solo artist with a new album. It's called Give It Time.
Just a girl with some lofty dreams, wrote them down in 2014.
This project is called Give It Time. Take me inside the project as best you can.
Oh man, you know, sometimes it's tough to figure out what that overall theme is for the album. And then we wrote the song Give It Time. So then I went, maybe I can create some sort of a storyline here with this album as best as I can. And it doesn't have to just be about waiting in your career, but it can also be about waiting when you've prayed and asked the Lord to heal you, you know, or restore a relationship with someone that's close to you. And healing takes time, you know, as well. So it's twofold in that way. It's me waiting in my career, but also me waiting for my own personal healing as well.
How do you stay when you're ready to run? How do you know when it's time to move on? We have to give it time.
What's the oldest song on it in terms of how far back it goes?
I think it's between Matthew 5 and Honestly, We Just Need Jesus. So sitting on Honestly, We Just Need Jesus that long that one was tough.
That's
yeah.
my favorite one.
yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Honestly, I think we just need Jesus.
What happened that you penned that? What happened?
We were in that room that day and just wanting to write honest songs. I try and push myself to write real lyrics, you know, and not just general blanket statements, you know.
We've been drinking in the vanity. Now it's got us questioning our sanity. And we wonder how we get all this anxiety. It's clear to me.
Bringing it back home in that chorus to just say, honestly, we just need Jesus. And it's like, why is it that we need Jesus? It's one, he died for our sins. He's the Lord of our lives. He's the creator of the heavens and the earth. You know, who wouldn't need him, you know? But also what Jesus gives is salvation, reconciliation, peace, which is what the world's craving, is peace, you know? And I think that can only truly be found in him.
I so often think we underestimate, we put him in a box. Tell me about Big God.
Man. That song comes from feeling cornered by tough times. And I think when you feel cornered by the stuff you're dealing with in life, it becomes so loud, you know, and sometimes you can feel like it's just you and that problem, you know, and as a believer, you have to remind yourself that this is a moment, this is a season. God is far bigger than this, far bigger than this. And I think about the fact that he's working in every one of our lives. He knows the details of all of our lives, you know, and every request that's before him, he's taking care of it, you know, and that to me screams, he's a big God. And so he's got us. With music, I've had confidence in just the music that I feel the Holy Spirit has given me, you know, and it takes longer with the sound that I have, but I'm like, you know what, it's fine. Just do you, do what he's put in you and let him figure it out for you, you know.
Terrian's new album is called Give It Time. It's available wherever you purchase, download, or stream your music. Well, we need to take a quick break right here, but before we do, let's take a look at this week's Story in Pictures. Here's your Studio 5 snapshot for this week. We mentioned music man Quincy Jones at the top of the show. His life well lived is seen here in photograph. The prolific musician, movie maker, and mogul broke many barriers in his 91 years of life and more than 50 years in entertainment. He saw some 80 Grammy nominations and 28 wins. Born in Chicago, Jones got his start playing the trumpet in a band, eventually collaborating with artists like Ray Charles, Frank Sinatra, Michael Jackson, and so many more. His film credits include The Wiz and The Color Purple. On the small screen, he brought rapper Will Smith to the world in The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. He died Sunday at age 91, and his life in pictures is this week's Studio 5 snapshot. A classically trained pianist, a transformational speaker, and a one-time candidate for the White House.
I didn't wake up one day and suddenly decide to run for president. God had been planting some political seeds for a while now. Woke up January 1st and heard very clearly, run now, not later.
Jade Simmons joins us in Studio 5 to talk politics and, more importantly, purpose. At number 1.
73 Golf, take 1.
Right to your spot. And it's okay to look at
Alpha only mark.
The Chosen's creator and director Dallas Jenkins brings a Christmas classic to screen with the best Christmas pageant ever.
Don't miss out. The annual Christmas pageant tickets are on sale now.
They're advertising it on TV now?
The pageant is an especially big deal this year. It's the 75th anniversary.
I want to give special mention to Grace for volunteering to direct it.
You did what?
Oh no.
Comedian Pete Holmes has a leading role in the film in theaters this week. What connection do you make to traditions in your own Christmas story, if you will?
My character in the film gives out hams. That's his Christmas tradition. And my church didn't do pageants, so I don't have a one-for-one. But I will say that the set of the movie was the most Christmassy set I've ever seen in my life. It looked like a snow globe or something. It was so warm, and the tree and the set decoration was so perfect. And my wife and I both love Christmas so much that we were like, you could charge people to have one night in this place.
It's the Ham Man! I want some! It's Ham Day! Hey! That ham's for Christmas eating, and if any of you touch it before then, I will invent a torture just for you.
Is your mom home?
Welcome back to Studio 5. November 8th marks World Pianist Day. Well, Jade Simmons is a classically trained concert pianist who's also a speaker and author. She's even made a run for the White House.
My purpose is no longer to play the piano. My purpose is to activate audiences into becoming the biggest, boldest version of themselves possible. The one they were always created to be.
You were a presidential candidate in 2020.
Yeah, so you just jumped right in. Listen, that's the biggest divine detour. I would not trade it in for the world. I learned so much about who God is, the potential of this nation. A spoiler alert, we are not who they show us to be on television. There really is not this divide that we think. When you talk to people one-on-one, they all want so many of the same things. They all want to see a more human environment in the way that we operate, and they want to treat each other well. So I believe this nation has incredible purpose, and I was honored and maybe will still be honored in the future, that God has chosen to use me in that way to serve as a different voice, one that I hope pierced through some of the darkness of that season.
Now, you've written a book called Purpose the Remix.
That's right.
What inspired it? Did your purpose get remixed? What happened?
It did, it did. You know, my first book is called Audacious Prayers. And so there I was trying to get us to pray boldly, as big as the God we serve. But when I wrote Purpose the Remix, one of the things I realized is one of the recurring questions from people in all walks of life was, what is my purpose? And I feel like I'd lived the first half of my life believing my purpose was to play the piano. And the revelation that I believe God has been giving me over the years, and he did it first at the piano, was you are not these 88 keys. But what happens in my people, in other people, he says, when you are doing the gift that I've given you or the skill that you've learned, that is purpose, that outbreak effect. So purpose, I believe, is not something we have to go run out and discover. We don't have to go live in India for a year, eat, pray, love, right? Any of those things. It's already been operating, and so our job is to look back and see what the wake is that we've been leaving for our entire lives, and then pick that up and on purpose move forward.
What's made it so difficult to find it?
We've been told that it's hard, it's elusive. So we sort of relegate purpose to the other person that's bigger than us. And I always say purpose is not bigger or smaller. It really is one size fits all. And when we talk about things like suicide and depression, you will almost always see a disconnect from purpose. If I have no reason for being here, what am I doing anyway? And if all the things I want or all the things I do are failing, what am I doing anyway? But I think waking up and realizing that just you being you, the version that God has created you to be, the biggest, boldest version possible, you showing up has an effect. And if we can reconnect to that outbreak effect, there's a connection there that's much harder to sever than a vocation, an education, a skill, or a talent. There's something about remembering whose child you really are that reminds you are not the fatherless child or the motherless child, but you have this eternal Father who has made a path and gone before you and made all the crooked places straight. But to remember that we must not take on the burdens that others or society or history even tries to make us carry, but that we are free and freed to carve a new path, and it doesn't have to look like the ones that have come before us.
Jade Simmons is nicknamed classical music's #1 maverick. Welcome back to Studio 5. As you know, music helps us to bring you this show each and every week, and this week's soundtrack comes from CeCe Winans. See why It's Christmas is what's playing in my ear this week. Well, yes, it is time to start thinking about Christmas. On that musical note, we are just about out of time for this week's edition of Studio 5. So let's take a quick look at what we're working on next week's rundown.
It's the very same power that I feel stirring in this place.
Singer and songwriter Kim Walker-Smith joins us. This is the Testify Tour. What gave birth to this? I was waiting for a Trample tour, so when I said Testify.
I always feel like I want to bring something to the body, and I'm not really interested in just singing songs, and I put a lot of thought into prayer into this, and like what would that message be, or what do I want to bring to the body? And the thing that I kept coming back to, and the thing that was just in my mind over and over every time I prayed, was thinking about our testimonies.
Very same liar that tried to take my hope away is the very same liar that I see silent here today.
Be sure and join us next week for that story and so much more. As for this week, we've got time for just one more thing in our show. Let's give that time to recording artist Tarian. She's got our final word. If you could go back now that we're here, to that little girl just starting out, that young woman, what advice would you give her on the journey? What would you say at the start of it all?
That is a really good question. I would probably say, always fight to be yourself. I think if you're not, it catches up to you at some point, you know, and it's not only not good for you, but it's not good for the people around you. And that's a lesson that I still struggle with sometimes, you know, but I think overall, if you're just who the Lord has made you to be, He will figure out the rest. Yeah.
Well, that is a great final word for this week's edition of Studio 5. Until next time, make time to uplift someone around you, and then please come on back and see where Studio 5 takes you next week. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye, everybody.